In this video, I'm going to tell you the books that remind me of these Beyonce albums. Something Beyonce has not done is written a book. However, I do feel like each of her albums is a book in itself. Like that's like her form of writing. So we are going to go in order from oldest to most recent, and make sure you stick around to the end to see what I choose for Cowboy Carter. Most of these books are romances, but one of them is not, and I will explain why. But the first one for Dangerously in Love is going to be 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. If you read this book, then you know that these two are not all that great for each other, but we still love it and just light it up. So it's a story about Shane and Eva who are reconnecting after not having seen each other since high school. They're both authors. They're both actually romance writers, and they meet at a work conference. However, it gets really awkward because you can tell there's still something that's going on between them, but throughout the book you learn how they came together, but you also get the story of why they weren't good for each other and why they ended up separating. So this is a second chance romance, and it's also pretty spicy. However, parts of the story, I'm like, these two are definitely obviously not good for each other, which is why I feel like it's dangerous for them to be in love with each other. Spoiler alert, they obviously do end up together. Looking at the songs on Dangerously in Love, this one really remind me of Naughty Girl, Baby Boy, oh my gosh, Me, Myself, and I. Oh my gosh, this is definitely this book. Dangerously in Love, obviously, like this, Crazy in Love. These two are definitely crazy in love, and you just see it play out even with them as teenagers, and then again with they reconnect as adults. It's very good, it's very juicy. But 7 Days in June is the Dangerously Love Beyonce album. Next is BDay. The book that I chose for this album is going to be Between Lovers and Friends. Now this is a story about Dr. Josephine, who is a doctor that left the field to be an influencer. She really wants to figure out where she wants to take her career, whether it be stay in medicine or do something that's related to medicine or continue to be an influencer. But she's caught in this love triangle between her best friend and this writer guy that she recently met at her best friend's mom's party. And the reason why I chose BDay is because Josephine is technically a virgin, and she talks about it on her online platform, but she's still very sex positive and very sexfluential, if that's a word. Even though they're talking about a love triangle, they also explore different parts of spice. And the songs of this book really reminded me of were Deja Vu, because again, she's going back and forth with this guy who's been her best friend for a long time but hasn't paid her any attention. And then Get Me Bodied, Upgrade You, Ring the Alarm, Kitty Cat, like Freakum Dress. Like she literally gets into it with this guy Malcolm, who is the guy that she's now seeing. So I feel like this is the perfect book to represent this album, because all the songs talk about heartbreak but also spice, if you know what I mean. And that's kind of what this book is. So heartbreak with her best friend, but then like spice with this new guy that she's seeing. So that one is, this is gonna be my BDay. Next up is Sasha Fierce, and if you remember, this album was really about Beyonce's alter ego. So there's a lot of songs on this album that were top hits. However, the ones that really stick out to me are Diva, Sweet Dreams, and obviously Single Ladies. So the book that reminded me of this album is really The Shadow Sisters. This one is not a romance, but it is a mystery, and it's about this girl whose sister goes missing and is mysteriously found, but they don't know what happened to her while she was missing. And even though the girl returns, she's completely and totally different. So it's almost like she's an alter ego of who she used to be, and she's not really herself. So that's why I feel like this one would really be a Sasha Fierce novel, because it's dark, it's twisted, it's not like her usual pop hits, you know what I mean? But it is really good, and there's some twists and turns in this book that make you think of like, what would happen to me if I were in something like this in this situation. It's also empowering too with how the book ends, which is where like Single Ladies comes in. And then of course on that album we also had Disappear, Hello, that's literally this book. If I Were a Boy, that kind of plays in throughout the story. So yeah, I feel like this will definitely be a Sasha Fierce novel if I could make it a book. Next up is Lemonade, and y'all all know that Lemonade was a very angry album. It was really a tribute to her going through with Jay-Z. At least that's what we all think it was about. I'm pretty sure that's what it was about, right? Anyway, in this album, Beyonce pretty much goes kind of crazy, but like in her own way, if you know what I mean. The book that I chose for this album was The Other Mistress, and this book was so good. So it is a psychological thriller, and it's about this woman who finds out that her husband has not one but two different mistresses, and she actually goes a little crazy. So she decides to meet with the first mistress that she discovers, and she's talking to that mistress, and she's like, well, you're not his only mistress, there's actually another woman. The first mistress is like, what? A word? And they decide to team up together and ruin the relationship between the husband and his second mistress. If that's not lemonade, I don't know what is. The whole album was angry, yelling. She had a little bit of country in there, just I think like a prelude to Cowboy Carter. But anyway, I feel like this book really encaptures the psycho, crazy woman that men can sometimes bring out of us if we catch them in a situation. You know what I mean? It just brings out all those feelings that you're like, oh my gosh. It's traumatic, but it's also something that you just can't stop watching. You can't stop looking at. The songs really remind me of this were Love Drought, Formation, because the girls team up together, Pray You Catch Me, Don't Hurt Yourself, oh my gosh, Sorry. Like literally this entire album is about cheating, and that's what this book is. So I feel like it would be the perfect combo with that album, if you know what I mean. And next is my favorite albums to this day, and that is the live album Homecomings. The performance at Coachella was absolutely insane, and then rewatching it on Netflix was just, it just fed my soul so deeply. So I still listen to the album regularly, and the book that I think really reminds me of this album is Honey and Spice. This album was very Black Pride, but also banding together. So it does have some recurring themes from her other albums, but I feel like Homecoming is the best one for this. She mixes together a lot of her like female empowerment songs, and that's why I feel like this book is really about. So this book is about a girl named Kiki who is a talk show host at her university, and her talk show is really about empowering women so they don't fall victim to different situationships while at college. Even though she's really empowering, she ends up getting in a fake relationship with this guy, Malachi, because they sort of need each other to get what they want out of school. So they're kind of partnering together for a project. I'm not going to tell you what that project is. However, through this novel, she starts to discover different things about Malachi that kind of makes her look at relationships a little bit differently, but also still uses her voice and her presence to help women empower all the other women on campus. So I feel like all the songs on Homecoming were just empowering. And again, they're renditions of her various songs on different albums. But this one really stuck out to me as like, oh, Homecoming for sure. Like aside from like the Black Student Union that happens in this novel, it is a college book. There's just a lot of like really empowering. I keep saying empowering, but like I don't know what else word to say because that's just what it feels like. So I will say it does kind of feel like a YA novel, so it's not necessarily very spicy, even though it's called Honey and Spice. It was very, very low spice, so that's what you're looking for. It's not this one, but this one definitely does give me Homecoming vibes. Last but not least, we are gonna talk about Renaissance. Renaissance. Renaissance is the most recent album I've listened to. No, I have not listened to Cowboy Carter yet, but there will be a part 2 hopefully. But the songs that really stick out to me on Renaissance were obviously Break My Soul really stuck out, Alien Superstar, I'm That Girl, as well as Energy, and also Cuff It. So like those were like my top 5s from Renaissance, and it really reminded me of this book, You've Been Served. And this one is about a girl who decides that she is going to leave her job as a chef and she is going to become a lawyer. So she decides to go to law school. She moves from California to Michigan, and she starts law school without even thinking twice about it. On her first day, she realizes that the guy who's like showing off in this class is actually her neighbor, and they get to know each other and start to learn about each other and also become a part of the same study group within their law school group. It's a really interesting story that is very empowering to me in the way that is like about Break My Soul, because her transition from being a chef to now being in law school was very, very hard. And instead of her like folding and quitting, like she decides pushing through, but at the same time like also ends up falling in love with this guy. So you get a little bit of love mixed in there with Cuff It. Alien Superstar, that one really sticks out to me because again, she doesn't start out really good in law school, but she eventually gets to it. Of course, I'm That Girl by the time of the end of the novel. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I will say it has a positive ending. So yeah. So if you notice, I did not talk about Cowboy Carter, and that's because I haven't listened to the album yet. I know, I'm going to listen to it, but if you guys want me to do a part 2 to include the albums that I did not include in this video, let me know in the comments, because I can definitely come up with another list of books that really remind me of different Beyonce albums or of other artists. I feel like there are so many other artists I could talk about with novels that I've already read. So if you like this video, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.